I think crossbows are the #1 tool that have helped retain and recruit more hunters than anything else in this industry over the past 25 years.
You know, and then I guess we look around the room and we talk about record books, we talk about herd health. I think those things speak very clearly to the fact that the crossbow has been nothing but a positive for Ohio's deer herd.
I'm a lifelong bow hunter. I love bow hunting. And over the past 20 years, what I've seen from crossbows might surprise you. I think crossbows are the #1 tool that have helped retain and recruit more hunters than anything else in this industry over the past 25 years. Crossbows have helped people come into the hunting community who might have never tried hunting, whether they're adult onset hunters, as we call them, people who take up hunting after they're 20 years old, or older hunters, keeping them hunting longer. If you look at the statistics, 20 years ago, the hunting curve kind of went like this. It started at 12 years old, it went up, it leveled, and by the time people got to 55, it went off a cliff. And that would have continued, and we have a lot less deer hunters today had crossbows not come in there. Now, if you look at that curve, it's much more gradual, and it's extending out a lot longer. I know so many people, 60, 70, 80 years old and older, who are hunting today, bow hunting, because of the crossbow. So that is an important thing to keep in mind. It is allowing more people to stay within the community, and the more people we have in the community, the stronger we're going to be.
So when crossbows were legalized in Ohio back in 1976, the only other state that had a comparable season was Arkansas. And I think even considering Arkansas' situation, Ohio was unique in that it didn't add an additional deer. So adding crossbows did not add an additional deer to the bag limit. So it wasn't like we were creating additional opportunities. What it did was it added a implement choice. So hunters weren't given an opportunity to kill an additional deer with a crossbow. They had to decide, make the decision, do I kill this deer with a crossbow, or do I attempt to kill it with a shotgun? So it really didn't impact the herd to the extent that it would in some other states where you're simply adding or dividing that harvest pie up into 8 rather than 7 slices, if you will.
3 of the biggest advancements in technology in crossbows center on design, speed, and safety. Let's talk about all of them. Design. Today's crossbows are a lot more compact, they're small, they're lightweight, and you see some of these new designs. The reverse draw technology, that's a big one. That's led to our second thing, speed. You've seen crossbows go from the upper 200s in feet per second to over 3 to now pushing well over 400 feet per second. They're shooting those bolts, those arrows, a lot faster than they were before. How does this help me? It might extend my range bow hunting a little bit. Again, I'm a 40-yard guy when it comes to bow hunting, because bow hunting is about shot placement. Could I hit a deer out at 50 or 60 yards? Yeah, I could, but a lot can go wrong in that time, just as if I'm shooting my Matthews. If I'm shooting my 10-point, that thing might be fast. The difference is where I aim. I don't have to use as many crosshairs in that scope, or pins on your bow if you're shooting your bow, when I'm shooting speeds like that. So that's a nice improvement in crossbows. But one of the neatest things about crossbow technology improvements is safety. There's so much safety built into these things now. They've got special triggers, they've got special guards, they've also have special aerial containment systems that you cannot dry fire those things practically unless you're really trying to. So think about that. Think about the design of the crossbow, the speed of the crossbow, and the safety aspect, and you'll be impressed with the new lineup of crossbows that you find out there. So Brad's heading south to Oklahoma for a crossbow hunt in January. This is post-rut. Is it going to be a piece of cake? I don't think so. You know, post-rut, you're talking about deer that have been pressured for months. You're talking about changing weather patterns. It's going to be a little bit warmer than those earlier season, you know, November hunts that he had. How do you prepare for this? Easy way to prepare, we talk about it all the time. Bring everything in the kitchen sink if you can, but it's all about that preparation for a hunt like this.
Well, we're here in the Oklahoma woods. You'd swear we were in Minnesota or somewhere in Canada with the amount of snow they had here today. We got in late last night because the highways were bad traveling. We just got in after dark, and rather than take a chance in rushing things and sighting bows in the dark, we opted just to wait for the afternoon hunt. But it also gave us the opportunity to go out and chase some beautiful Oklahoma late season mallards. Shot some wonderful ducks today. We're going to have them for supper tonight. So all part of the adventure when you come to Oklahoma. They tell me the snow here is very unusual. They only get 1 or 2 days a year. Well, we've already seen 2 days, so I think that's it for the rest of the trip, if we're lucky. But we got a real unique spot here. We're hunting a stretch of woods that's a funnel zone going to a green field. We expect a bunch of deer to come out of the woods from the north here. We got really good wind, open pasture behind us. So with any luck, they're going to come and pass right through in front of us here on their way to the winter wheat fields that they normally feed in. But always good to come to Oklahoma. Incredible numbers of deer and some very nice antlered bucks. So we're settling in for the evening, watching the snow fall and waiting for the deer to show up. Barbecue duck breast. Let the skin in, the fat. Look at how that crisps up, all that flavor there. Beautiful there. We also have some legs and thighs. Always not wanting them. Use what the duck provided. Oh, baby. Look at that.
He lays it in, fills it out flat.
There you go. There's perfect duck. You guys want to grab one?
Ready?
We've got some rosemary and some chives and some basil in there. If we had fresh herbs, that would be best. Some salt and pepper. We're going to add an egg and some cream, and we're going to make some duck bologna. Stick around. You're going to want to see how this is done. And put an egg in there. Go. Some plastic wrap, and we're just putting the duck mixture onto the plastic wrap. And what we're going to do is roll these up tight. Work it backwards. Pull it tight. You can see how it forms nicely into the boiling water, and we'll get it up to a simmer and turn it down and let it go for about 35 minutes. Just show you how easy these are to make. It's wrapped in plastic wrap. Alright. There it is. When it cools, it'll set up a little more, but there they are.
After 2 days of adverse weather conditions, Brad is ready for the action to pick up, and the morning of day 3 doesn't disappoint.
Excitement this morning. Man, the deer were in tight. We could barely move or breathe. I was afraid they're going to hear us or see us, but patience paid off. Shooting the new 10-point Turbo M1. Shoots 380 feet per second. This thing's super compact, but that buck came in from our right. It's very cautious, came through, and he never quit walking the first time. I had to just be patient. I didn't want to take a moving shot. And he moved on. I couldn't see him. He'd gone off over in the brush over there. Then he worked his way back, and I could see him scenting the air and trying to figure out if it was going to be safe or not. But it all worked out. I think I got a really good shot on that deer. We're using those Sever broadheads, and from my experience last year and earlier this year, where he said he shouldn't have gone too far because they really do a devastating job on those deer. Anyways, got a bit of the Oklahoma shakes. It's a bit of a cool morning, but I think we finally have a deer on the ground too.
Well, I don't think we have to check him, but it's always a good policy. He really bled out good. That arrow did exactly what it was supposed to do. There is a beautiful Oklahoma whitetail. Can't feel that broadhead in that shoulder. I'm sure it's on the other side. There is no hole for an exit. But we really didn't need it today because the entrance wound really left us a telltale sign to follow him up the hill here. Probably went a little over 100 yards. Again, very typical for a whitetail. I mean, they've got a will to survive. Beautiful deer. I like getting down into this part of the world because they look a lot different than the deer at home. They're sort of dainty and slight, but those prairie deer, they still act the same. Cautious, always looking for trouble. You know, lots of time you're in a blind, you want to set your bow down, have hands free a little bit, give yourself a break. If you have an arrow in your crossbow, you got to be careful. You're always better to take it off, but if you want to stay ready, make sure your bow is pointed down in a safe direction. You never want an arrow up where if your bow fell over, it could accidentally discharge in the blind, so it's always safe. The other thing you do is when you do pick it up, you always want to check and make sure your arrow didn't slide down the rail. You know, you keep it lubed and stuff, and if that comes unseated, you're going to end up with a dry fire. With the Omni knock or the dry fire inhibitor, you can see that the lever is still down, so I know that my arrow's knocked. Otherwise, you'd have to do a quick check just to make sure it's seated, but that anti-dry fire lever is a good way to ensure that that arrow didn't slip off. If you're sitting in a blind or a tree stand, 10-point makes a steady eddy. I've extended this one out a little bit. You're gonna attach it really easy, just push it on. And then what you do is you take the ball on the steady eddy and you sit on it, and it gives you a pivot point for a steady rest. I can swivel out any of these windows one-handed without any other support. So it allows you to cover lots of room with very little movement. And if you want, you can sit actually quite relaxed just with the bow ready to go. All you have to do is lift the butt. Very little movement, on target.
We've got accuracy and we've got consistency. Ammo manufacturers, they make bullets to very tight tolerances so that each cartridge is identical to the next one. What does that give you? It gives you consistent accuracy from shot to shot. Now with a black powder rifle, you've got this. Accuracy, consistency, yes and no. So with a muzzle-loading rifle, basically what you're doing is you're building your cartridge in the barrel of gun. You're using the different components to make a cartridge. You've got the powder that goes down the barrel, you've got the bullet that goes down the barrel, and you've got the primer that sets off the charge. And for me, there's three things that really give you a consistent shot time and time again. The first one is how you clean the rifle, how you consistently clean the rifle and foul the barrel. The second is how you build that load in your gun to make it consistent from time to time. And then the third component is shooting the gun, shooting it consistently, getting the same trigger pull each time. The first thing that I need to do when I get back to the range or on a hunt, I want to run a patch down the barrel to get rid of that oil. Okay, now I want to foul that barrel before I take my first shot, and I want to continue to follow it in the same way so that I get that consistency. And the way I do that is I fire 2 primers through the barrel. That gives me that consistent clean and that consistent foul. Now the next step, building that load. Obviously you want to use the same amount of powder for each shot, whether you're using pellets like this or if you're using granular black powder or a substitute. Now I'm going to be using 100 grains of powder. I'm just going to run that down the barrel and then followed by my bullet. You just push it till it gets nice and snug and then give it a little bit of pressure and then try to always use that same amount of pressure. So I got what I feel is a consistent load now. We've got a consistent cleaning and fouling process. We've got a consistent loading process. You know, probably not the same accuracy that you're going to get with a center fire rifle, but it's going to be pretty darn close. Okay, the last thing in the consistency equation is the human element. You need to be able to make the same shot, the same trigger pull, the same routine every time you take the shot. Now with the trigger pull, you want the meaty part of your finger on the trigger like that, so that your fingernail is basically pointing at a 90-degree angle to you. That way you're going to be pulling the trigger straight back and you're going to get a nice crisp release. Now for the breathing part, I like to just calm myself down before the shot. And this is very important when you're hunting because the adrenaline gets going, your heart gets going, and you're breathing fast. So what I do is I take a couple deep breaths, I let go of about half of the last breath, and then I address the trigger, and then I take a nice, clean, steady, straight back pull.